Back here on the Meat Speak podcast, powered by the certified Angus beef brand, Brian Shaw here, as always, with the good chef, Chef Tony Big.
Konnichiwa.
Konnichiwa, sir.
Today, Brian, is one of my favorite topics, but you do the introduction here so we can get into it, baby.
Yeah, every year there are these lists that come out talking about trends, right? Food trends. And to an extent, like I read them, I don't really give them a lot of credence, though, because what is a trend? Well, a trend to me is just stuff that I dig, right? I don't want some food writer telling me what I need to enjoy this year. However, one of the things that consistently shows up on a lot of food trends lists, Asian cuisine, right? Asian cuisine and to double down on that, communal dining, which you can have communal dining anywhere, any type of cuisine, but Asian cuisine obviously lends itself to communal dining. So we wanted to take 30 or so minutes to talk about Asian food. And we have a lot of chef friends around the world, but man, who better to talk about this than the man who is sitting across from me every other week here in studio, the man who has been the executive chef of the Tokyo American Club and been in the Philippines. His wife is Filipino, for crying out loud.
She is.
A wealth of not just culinary information, but man, if you wanna put something on a tea and make sure it's right in your wheelhouse, Chef Tony Biggs, man, I don't.
Well,
yeah,
I spent 10 years in Asia, Brian, and like you mentioned, the first time I spent as executive chef and food and beverage director at the Tokyo American Club, which has around 7,000 members. It's your home away from home, okay? It's for those expats living in Tokyo that are looking for that American cuisine that they so desperately missed. And that's why they hired a good old boy like me to come and change all the menus to different regions of the United States. Okay, what are we doing in Tokyo? Where's the sushi chef? Where's this? Well, how can I compete with the best sushi houses or the best ramen houses in the area where, people can, our members can go outside, have the best ramen, have the best sushi. No, we had the best American food. But I'll tell you what, I spent a lot of time in those Asian restaurants. And I tell you, I spent 2 years in Tokyo. I loved it. I spent about a year in Shanghai, China, 2 years in Malaysia, and I spent 7 years working for the Jimmy Group, which is a casino group out of Hong Kong. And I spent 7 years in the Philippines working for Dr. Jack Lamb and Company, running his Fort Ilocandia Resort and Casino, and also Fontana Leisure Parks in Pampanga, which at one time was the largest U.S. Air Force base in Southeast Asia. Back in the wars, Vietnam, okay, everybody would come from Vietnam would come to Pampanga, or Clark, as they called it, and spend their time there, relaxing until they got back for action overseas to Vietnam and those areas. I tell you, I learned so much about cuisine and food, and this is why I tell every young chef, you must travel, because this is where you're gonna, if you really are a serious gastronomique, okay, gastronomer, you want to travel, learn everything you can, the spices, the seasonings, the different ways of cooking methods. I mean, can you imagine, shabu shabu, okay, using certified Angus beef, Brian, huh? I mean, just a beautiful, like you mentioned, communal dish. I've thought, really, if I were going to open a restaurant, that I would have laureates. The laureates are the glass tables they use in Chinese restaurants where they just put the food on the table, they spin it around like the Wheel of Fortune, and it's just a great dining experience eating with chopsticks. For some reason, eating with chopsticks is so much different than eating with a fork when you're in Asia. It just doesn't seem right, and mentally too as well. I spent a lot, like you mentioned, my wife is Filipina. Half Chinese, so my father-in-law is Chinese, and he would pick out the best restaurants in Manila. Sometimes we would fly to Hong Kong, and we'd have a beef shank, okay? Let's say a beef or pork shank that's just braised in XO sauce, gravy, and just the seasonings, the spices that I came back with from my repertoire just expanded. I mean, I was a meat and potato guy. I knew Southern cuisine, but I was schooled on a whole different level on Asian food. It was just amazing. So what we've done here at our culinary center is, of course, you all know that we sell beef all around the world, certified Angus beef, and folks love it. And we have a lot of groups coming from Asia. And last week we had a group come in, a Korean group, and we did an inspired Korean menu using certified Angus beef. I know that everybody's using Wagyu out there and and spending a lot of money. But I'll tell you, the biggest compliment I got from this Korean group, as the president of this company came back in the kitchen and he was looking for grandma. Okay? He said, "Where did you buy the food?" I was insulted. Where did I buy the food? I made this food. It came from my hands with love. When you cook, you can tell there's love in the food, all right? Just by, the time you take, the passion, and the ingredients you buy. Right, chefs? I know you're listening to me out there. So one of the things I love when I go to Korean restaurants is the Pajeon, okay? I hope I'm pronouncing that right. Pajeon, which is a spicy Korean pancake. So what we did was we turned this up a notch. We had some beautiful chuck roll that we braised and smoked, and we put this on top of the pancake with scallion, chopped shrimp, peppers and onions, and some garlic, and we made this beautiful, beautiful pancake. Who doesn't like pancakes? But anyway, the Pajeon, I've made this several times now because people just love this kind of pancake. It's large. It's as large as a 14-inch pizza, but the sauce that goes with it is amazing. Gochujang, a little bit of soy sauce, white vinegar, black and white sesame seeds, honey, and sugar that go with the pancake. It is just amazing with shredded beef, and we made this up because nobody does it with beef.
Yeah,
it's all seafood or vegetable.
Now, what was the beef component?
That was a smoked chuck roll, and we shredded and put this on the pancake, and then we put a layer of scrambled egg, raw egg, and then we flip the pancake so you can see the scallion, the whole scallion, the shrimp, the shredded beef, and then to serve this with the sauce is just amazing. Another dish we did, which was we went from soup to nuts here, Brian, and we started with a beautiful soup, and the soup was a brisket, Korean spicy, and that's called yukajang. Okay, yukajang. I am probably not pronouncing these right. Yukajang, which is a spicy, we use certified Angus beef brisket. It's a spicy soup with the Korean hot red pepper. It's much, much different than the regular chili peppers or the ground cayenne pepper you get here in the U.S. A little bit of gochujang, soy sauce, sesame oil, and shredded brisket. And I tell you, what we did too is we put some rice cakes in with it, and it was just amazing dish. And I can understand why the president would come back to me and say, "Who cooked this meal?" Tony, all right?
Although,
Tony-san.
If he truly understood the demographics of Worcester, Ohio.
There's no Korean restaurant in this town. And there's the Chinese food, Chinese food in America is not the same when you go to Shanghai or Hong Kong. This is Americanized Chinese food, ladies and gentlemen, that you're getting here, okay? We have that, and it's really good, by the way, okay?
As somebody who spent time and lived in the culture, when you go into a sushi joint and somebody orders a California roll, clearly that has rooted in Tokyo, right? The California roll, of course, right?
You don't really find that California roll in Tokyo, okay? You might in some hipster type places or areas, but that's actually blasphemous, okay? To find that California roll. The other thing we did was we did a thing called tteokbokki, tteokbokki, which is another. We used a shredded beef with this, and this is a rice noodle dish. I used a little bit of seafood stock, gochujang, a little bit of sesame oil, but it's almost like a pasta dish using rice noodles.
Yeah.
Okay, a little chewier, so it's kind of got this chew to it that I kind of like. But I put onions and peppers and a little bit of garlic into this, and it looks like almost like a tomato sauce when you serve this. And then I put a little bit of fresh scallions on that. It's absolutely delicious. So we did these beef eccentric Korean dishes, and of course we ended it by doing bulgogi, and we did a kalbi Korean short ribs, bone in. Okay, about a 1/4 inch cut. The flanking ribs. Just amazing. And if you haven't done these, you can go to an Asian store, look up kalbi or bulgogi, and they have the dressing already made, which is it's a soy marinade with a little bit of pureed pear, honey, and all that. So it's got citrus. It's got everything you need for a fantastic marinade. You can marinate these ribs overnight, and you put them on a hot grill. And I can tell you, this is one. I don't want to say slap your mama, because I've already said this before, and your mother came after me.
She slaps back.
She does slap back, and hard. And I'm telling you, these Korean ribs are just absolutely epic. And if you serve this with a nice fried rice with some kimchi, chopped kimchi, a little bit of garlic, some leftover rice, a little soy sauce, and if you want to put some chopped meat into that, oh my gosh, unbelievable. Ladies and gentlemen, I love Korean food.
All day long. Chef, keeping on a similar topic, but slightly turning the page into, when I think of, one of the more beef-forward ways that Asian cuisine really comes to the forefront is obviously in a shabu-shabu setting.
Shabu-shabu.
Yeah.
Yep, one of my favorites.
It's thin sliced, obviously, highly, highly, highly marbled. Mm-hmm. I mean, when you think about things like communal dining, when you think about this huge influx, if you are in the meat industry or the beef industry or the cattle industry, it shouldn't come as no surprise to understand that there is a huge influx in prime beef, certified Angus beef prime, USDA prime. Overall the quality of cattle that are coming out just keeps getting better and better and better. And I think for a long time, shabu-shabu restaurants were kind of defined by the fact that, they're using some sort of Wagyu beef or something on that BMS scale. But there's a lot of prime beef that's going into shabu-shabu restaurants. I mean, you as somebody who, obviously prescribes to certified Angus beef prime here, can you talk us through, like, what are some of the things that, as somebody who's kind of run the gamut on all that, what are some of those attributes of a certified Angus beef prime cut in a shabu-shabu setting that really hit home for you?
Well, I during my travels through Asia, what I learned was that everybody is not using Wagyu. Okay, you have a mom and pop stand to a high end stand. The medium of the road is going to use a lower quality of beef, get the same results, and a little bit higher, which I promote to our chefs that are partners with us, is our certified Angus beef prime, and it's just amazing. There's a huge cost difference. Yeah. Okay, and for me, I like I think shabu-shabu is one of those dishes where I could just take a cut of beef, gently put it into the boiling seasoned broth, and enjoy it as much as I would a piece of Wagyu. And our certified Angus beef prime is just amazing. And so it melts in your mouth, has the same mouth texture, the same flavor, not as fatty, okay? Not as, you're not getting that fat content, but the expense and the price is a lot different. So, I promote that. There are thousands of shabu-shabu houses in Asia. Thousands. They're not all using Wagyu. Yeah. Okay, and I have to tell you that because, like I said, from a mom and pop to a high-end shabu-shabu, there's many, many, many of them up there. And so you're going to get different quality. Price is is a concern for those mom and pop restaurants. So they're not going to use G5 Wagyu in their $2 shabu shabu per person.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, and it eats really well. A good friend of ours in Cleveland here, right? Of course, Cleveland's the epicenter of the universe as far as we're concerned.
It really is.
There's a restaurant there. It's called Ushabu, which is down in Tremont, which is just on the south side of the Cuyahoga River. You can see downtown from there. And Chef Spinner, of course, he's a very high-end place. So, of course, he has a lot of, his A5s from, A5 BMS 10. I think last time I was there, he had an A5 BMS 12, which is the highest marbling grade that you can possibly get. One of the bites that stuck out for me, and when I dine, I always try and remain as unbiased as possible, although I have a certified Angus beef tattoo on my arm, as unbiased, I guess, as I can be. But he had a dry-aged certified Angus beef prime strip in a shabu shabu setting, and that was one of my favorite bites of not just shabu shabu, but of dry aged beef in general, because man, that sort of funkiness really comes through, and you get an entirely new level of flavor on your tongue that you're not getting from I shouldn't say just the higher grades of the Wagyu, but then just meat and rendering fat. I mean, it really, really drove home that dry aginess.
Speaking of dry age, a couple of weeks ago we did a wine dinner at our culinary center, and we did a dry aged eye round. Okay, Brian, come on, an eye round. It's good for a couple of things. Beef on wick, which is from Buffalo.
Yeah.
But what I found out when we had a dry aged eye round, it was 80 days. Took off all the fat off of it, and we froze a portion of it, and we made a little round cylinder, froze it, and we not shaved it, but paper thin deli slice, and we made some of the best sushi that you could ever imagine. So it was a dry aged eye round sushi roll. People were raving about it. If you put a little bit of eel sauce, pickled ginger, pickled daikon, little bit of crab stick, sriracha mayo, I'm telling you, this is an epic bite. Okay, with dry age, and you don't have to be expensive about it, right?
Yeah.
Everybody thought it was tuna. That's how good it was.
Yeah. Dry-aged eye of round.
Dry-aged eye round, ladies and gentlemen.
Well, I'm glad you went there, because I wanted to have a bit of a sushi discussion. It seems like sushi is one of those dishes that is, like all things, starts out as sacred, right? I mean, you look at some of these amazing sushi chefs in Asia and Japan and everywhere, and it's such a craft, right? And anytime you have something that starts with that, the general population is going to take it two ways, right? They're going to change it, but maybe they're going to change it in a different way that is delicious and respectable. And then they're also going to make things like a sushi bazooka. So leaving the bazooka that spits out sushi for a conversation for another day. One of the things that one of my favorite things that you ever make, and I say this after, we served 2,000 portions of it at Pebble Beach Food and Wine at the after party a couple of years ago.
I know. I made it all.
Yeah, you do a prime. It is a prime strip sushi. Can you tell us about how that dish is composed? Because yeah.
Well, my time, I went to. You've heard of Jiro's, Jiro? He was featured on Netflix, and when I went during my travels with Certified Angus Beef, I tried to get a reservation in there, and you go in. I mean, first of all, you have to go through all these subway stops, Shinjuku Station, everywhere to get to it, and I finally got there, and everything. The sign is in Japanese. It's like in a subway station on one of the floors. It seats about 10 people. Ex-President Obama was there with the Prime Minister of Japan. Try to get that reservation. Absolutely not. There's like a year waiting list for like a 10-seat sushi bar restaurant. And so, I take my inspiration. I'm not a master sushi chef by all means, but I love to copy and paste. And so I take, everybody kind of copies each other and replicates. And so I take what I see, what I taste, and I do my own version of it. That's what food is about, right? So how to compose our beef sushi is, especially certified Angus beef, is we'll take a prime, which got have a lot of marbling. We remove all that, tendons or intermuscular fat, all that, fat on top of like a strip loin. We've done strip, we've done tenderloin, we've done all the middle meats. But the eye round was kind of like a eye opener because of the cost. And so we clean this up. We make a round cylinder. We freeze this in saran wrap overnight, so it gets very hard. And what we want to do is we want to, deli slice this on a slicer, maybe even more than a deli slice. And that's the key to it, making sure it's thin enough where it's chewable. It's not pulling. It's not, you don't want anything that's pulling the rice and the nori sheet too. So what we do is we have some seasoned rice with rice vinegar, salt, and sugar. We mix that with our nishiki blend rice. Cool it down, fan it in our bamboo bowl, and then we proceed to roll on our nori sheet. I love cream cheese. I know, cream cheese. This is going back when I first had my first sushi roll with cream cheese and crab stick. This was like an eye opener. And then when you add pickled yellow daikon into the mix, you've got something really sensational. And that's why people like my sushi, is because a lot of people don't put that pickled yellow daikon into it. And it looks beautiful too. And when you got that cream cheese and all that, and the crab stick and all that, you've got something amazing. So let's put that together. I like cucumber, okay? And then we top it off with our certified Angus beef, shingled beef slices. And then I like the traditional eel sauce. And we do a sriracha mayo, a little bit of wasabi, fresh wasabi on the grater, and then we do a little pickled ginger, and you've got something really special.
Yeah,
amazing.
It's amazing how delicious that can be, and there is this internal struggle where you want to say sushi is made a certain way, right? You get caught in this pull between tradition and but this is really good.
If you like sushi like I like sushi, oh what a gal! I'm not gonna sing today, Brian. I know
you just did. It's the singing waiter in you. It just comes in at.
I'm not gonna do it today.
At various times. So, Chef, if you're listening to this, hopefully you've been able to convey that we haven't directly said it, so I'll go ahead and say it. We've talked about using everything from an eye of round all the way to a prime strip. We get asked a lot of questions like, what's new, what's hip? Well, it's not like cattle are growing new parts all the time. Every once in a while, I think I've said it before, you get an extra rib. That's your lucky day, right? But really, there is an application for just about everything. I've seen a lot of use of chuck roll, because it's so marbled, especially when you get into that serratus ventralis, that Denver muscle, that cross cuts. Hopefully one of the things that you can take away if you're listening to this, because I know we have a lot of industry folks who are listening. I mean, you don't have to go out and buy the highest and most expensive thing you can get if you want to do a beef option in this setting. It's kind of good across the board.
Hey, we did a Denver steak skewer, marinated. Paper thin, not paper thin, about 1/4 of an inch square piece of Denver, and we marinated it overnight in Calbee or bulgogi marinade, and then we quickly grilled those with the skewers, and we served that for a peanut sauce and scallion. It was the best bite. Yeah. It was the best bite. I mean, and we're not talking ribeyes, strips, or fillets here. We're talking chuck roll, okay, the Denver steak, and so this was amazing. This bite.
Chef, as somebody who travels quite a bit, a lot of times I think I am on the road a lot. You certainly have me beat. But as you travel and eat, I mean, do you have some places that are your that are your go-tos around the country? Because we have folks listening from all over the place. I mean, what are some of those Asian restaurants that jump out at you as just places that, like, man, if you're listening and you happen to live near here, you should probably go check it out.
Well, I'm going to be honest with you. One of my favorite places is in Parma, Ohio. Okay, and it's a Korean restaurant, and Dad is in the back. He's the chef, and daughter runs the dining room and speaks 3 languages, and she's a Korean-born American. And I'm going to tell you something. I go in there if I'm ready to eat. If I want shabu shabu, if I want my pancake, if I want kalbi, Korean flanken ribs, this is where I go.
Yeah.
And it is just an amazing place. And the tea is unbelievable. And it's one that's just like right near the airport. Okay. There's a lot of places in New York City.
Well, I'll
there's
tell you
so
what,
many.
yeah,
There's so many.
I'll jump in since you said New York City.
Okay.
One of the places that I shouldn't say always, but I do my best to never, ever miss it. And I say that because it's hard to get a rezo there, especially if you're interested in dining before, like, 10 o'clock at night. Coke Korean Steakhouse, right? David Shim, Simon Kim. The things that they are doing every time that I go there, I always walk away feeling like every bit of hype that has been written about this place is spot on, right? They always kill it. They always crush it. And it's not, they make the distinction. It is a Korean steakhouse. It is not Korean barbecue. They do have the grills in the middle of the table, and they actually grill it for you, and everything is kind of rubbed down with aged beef fat. And it's just exceptional.
I haven't eaten there yet, but I want to. I've heard like unbelievable things about it. Yeah, I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah.
There's a place in Vegas, kind of like a Fash Asian Bao. Amazing food. One of the most interesting dishes that I've had, and I know this is so simple, but there's a place called Calfish in Charlotte.
Yeah. We've talked about them before.
And I think we've talked about them before, but they make this bragushi, and it's a spin on a burger, a ground beef, certified Angus beef ground beef, and with melted American cheese, and they wrap that into a soy wrapper, and they tie it up with potato strings, deep fry it, and it's got mustard, ketchup, and mayo, and then you top it off with a little bit of tomato and pickle, and that is something that's just crazy good.
It goes back to, if you are going to veer off the path of tradition, it better be good.
Yeah, I don't think anybody would serve this overseas, but it's different.
So some of the other places that always jump out at me, of course, we've already talked about Ushabu here in Cleveland. But if you go out to Los Angeles, there's a place called Tokyo Shabu Shabu. That is, I'm telling you what, they're doing it right. Another one of my favorites anytime I'm in Chicago, if you get down to Momotaro, Gene Cato, good food. Holy cow.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
I love Benihana, too. Benihana and those restaurants where they do the onion volcano, and then they squirt the sake in your mouth. Do you like that? I mean, get this restaurant down the street that does this.
I'm always afraid I'm going to get hit with sake in the eye, And, sake is a very serious thing. And so if you find somebody who's very serious about their sake, and you mention, like, hey, you're going to squirt some in my mouth, like, they look at you like, you need to go.
You're right. These are American gimmicks, okay? Like, we know it's an American gimmick. It's in a squirt bottle. Hey, what is that, oil? Or is that flammable? What is that, right?
Well, I mean, if you're not careful, you'll get hit in the mouth with, like, peanut oil.
Peanut oil. I mean, excuse me, what are you doing?
Well, Chef, that is about all we've got time for. If this is your first time tuning into the Meat Speak podcast, know that you can find us across all of your major podcasting platforms, Apple, Google Play, Spotify, or simply by visiting certifiedangusbeef.com/podcast. Chef?
Good eating.
I appreciate you taking time.
Love you, man.
You've got a lunch to cook.